Tech Customs here. This week we're going to go over some costs of 3D printing. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't 3D print, especially at any kind of even smaller manufacturing type of level. Going to get into some different things, maybe my top 5 or 6 things that you need to think about, that we all look at and have to think about when it comes to cost of 3D printing and or customizing. So enjoy this week. We'll get right into it. All right, so number one is going to be basic costs. So you're going to have basic costs of electricity, materials, both raw materials and machinery and upkeep, repair, all that kind of stuff. It's not a huge percentage of the end cost in my case, in my opinion. However, it is something you have to keep in consideration, especially as number of printers go up and they're running maybe 24 hours a day, depending on what kind of prints you have and when you stop and start them. But electricity is definitely a factor. And then the cost of the printers, and if you ask anyone who has multiple printers or even one printer, repair costs, repair parts is a real thing still, no matter how high dollar, how new printers are. There's always things that go wrong, that just get used up or whatever it is that you got to repair, and those costs are in there. All right, number two for me is file and modeling time. So even for the files that I don't model myself, so there's no actual design time in, like I get a lot of my files for the bigger vehicles from Steve's Toys, there's still time involved setting those files up. Everything from making sure that you have the correct number of each part, making sure the parts are oriented correctly for your printer. Files that come from any third party for any 3D printer don't come set up usually for your printer, for your setup. So even a file's 100% done, sent in from, in my case, Steve, from Steve's Toys, I still have to go through and set those up. Still have to make sure, okay, what colors go on which plate. As I'm setting up the plate, well, I have 5 parts on here, 10 parts on here. Are they all going to be the same color, or am I going to have to split them up and do separate colors? What angle does something have to sit at to come out the best way possible? All that stuff has to be set up, and that's time. Now, as I go, that time gets shortened and shortened on those type of files, because once they're set up, maybe I adjust things, maybe I've learned something from the last time I printed it, and that process will get a little quicker. But I'm also always making changes, so I'm always going in and adjusting things of, hey, this part didn't fit the way I wanted it. Do I need to adjust it? Do I need to change something? Do I need to add magnets to it like I usually do? Just ways to make it easier on the end customer and or myself. Also think about the design time. So a lot of the things that I'm coming up with myself, the walls, the doors, they're not complex. I'm not spending years designing anything or anything like that. But it is time. It is time that I'm sitting here trying to figure things out, diving into things, making different models. That is time on the backside that's got to be amortized throughout the cost of what you're designing, and what you're going to charge for it. It has to pay for your time on the back end as well. Number three for me is something, if you've done any 3D printing, you understand, but it is failures. So I have had failures from everything from the first couple layers, and you come back to your printers a few hours later and you realize that in the first couple layers it failed. Sometimes my printers stop. My one printer has an AI detection, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, where it'll detect like, hey, something's not right, or there's stringing here that shouldn't be, spaghetti mess or whatever, and it'll see it and pause it. Not all of them do that. Some of them keep going. Some of them just have a software malfunction and start the print and then just pause out of nowhere, and you got a hard reset. All of that stuff is wasted time, wasted material that you've got to factor in of, hey, somehow I have to cover that. I've also had files that are 20-hour print that fail on hour 15. That not only is that wasted time, but that's maybe a quarter roll of filament that you're just throwing in the trash. I do what I can to save things when possible, whether I use them for paint test samples and stuff later, or if it's my own stuff going on a shelf, like maybe there's a small discrepancy or small thing that didn't go right. I'll put it in as battle damage or whatever and still use it depending on what it is. But if it's going to a customer, that it does not do that, so it goes straight into the garbage. and that's just wasted filament that unfortunately is not seeing the customer, but that cost has to be built in somehow because it's an unknown. I could have every part fail once before it goes good on a certain project, or none, or more than likely somewhere in between. So that's something that's got to be factored in on some of these big vehicles, like a big Raven or something. Some of those parts fail. I mean, that's a day's worth of printing and half a roll worth of filament that is just garbage, and you got to start over, and I got to order more filament in, or whatever it is in that case. So it's definitely something to keep in mind and keep that cost. If you're printing these yourself, or if you're buying them, you'll know that now that hey, everyone's got to think of that when you're 3D printing one way or the other. There is failures, and that's, it's waste. Number four kind of goes with number one. On my specific stuff, I paint a lot, so do a lot of custom painting whenever you're ordering a custom painted vehicle from me. That's material costs, so airbrushes, paintbrush, paint, primer, sealer, decals from Bad Mother Customs. Everything that I can put on it, I do, and all of that unfortunately comes with a cost. I do go through paint pretty quick, especially an airbrush. When I'm covering something, even the Hunter tank that I'm doing for a customer, it's just going to be green, but I put down a base layer of green on top of their green, so it's the entire thing is covered, so it matches the same. Paint that lays on top of it lays the same. It's a cost that adds up. So for me specifically, painting, not even counting in my own time, which I gotta factor in as well. Some of these vehicles I spend hours and hours, and I mean days on. It's split up into different chunks of time as I'm able to, and let things dry and work on something else. But I mean, they're 3 or 4 days worth of hours wise. So you're talking 36, 48 hours worth of work on it, not just it took me 4 days and I'm done. Probably took me 2-3 weeks and 48 hours worth of actual work time on it, that specific project to get that done. So factor in that the hourly rate, pay myself something just so I can survive a little bit, and the cost of all those materials and those extras and stuff that I put on it. That you got to add that in there as well. All right, last one gonna say is knowledge and artwork in general. So you're paying for anyone that's customizing, whether it's individual figures, vehicles like myself, dioramas, artwork itself, like paintings and stuff. You're paying some for that knowledge and the history that person has put in, the work, the grind on the backside, the years of learning different disciplines and skills. That's factored in. 100%. Just because someone can do it in 2 hours, let's say, do a painting in 2 hours, depending on their level of skill, it might cost you the same as someone that spends 10 hours on it. It's just that person that can do it in 2 hours has spent maybe 15 years learning how to do it in 2 hours instead of 10 hours. I think there's a lot in the art community as a whole, the creative community maybe, that they think if you can do it quick, then it should be cheap. Those don't always go hand in hand. Sometimes that makes sense. I'd say a lot of times if you're doing it quick and it's still good, you've put in a lot of work on the back end to get to that point. It's not easy to do something really well and fast at the same time and accomplish what you set out to accomplish. I struggle with it myself sometimes, of going too fast, too slow, finding that balance. But there's definitely things I've learned along the way, whether it's been 20 years ago at a different job, jobs in between, my art degree at school, whatever it was years ago. All of that stuff adds up to build this knowledge base that any customizer, anyone out there doing any kind of work at all, really, but in this case, toy work, all that's being brought in. So you've got to factor that in a little bit, and either that person's knowledge and skills are worth that cost to you, or they're not. And that's pretty simple of, move on and find someone that does fit your style, and that you do value that artwork and stuff, and it doesn't matter if they can get it to you in 2 days or 2 weeks. Either you value it or you don't. All right, just to sum this up, One, I want to make sure I appreciate every customer, no matter if you order something for $5 or $5,000. I appreciate everyone who puts their faith and trust in my work and my designs, my art style for that matter. I really appreciate everyone. Appreciate everyone just watching these videos. Hopefully this was informative and helpful in some fashion for someone. I've had enough questions and comments and different things of this costs a lot, or this costs so much, or why does this cost, that, you know, especially in today's environment and economic situation that our country's in, or any other country for that matter, I understand why it's a concern. It's a concern for me when I'm ordering stuff. So hopefully this video, my intention was just to kind of explain some things and help people further understand. Maybe they've never done 3D printing before, and they just assume you push a button and a thing like a vehicle comes out, and don't know the back end and the work that goes into it. If anyone's interested in more detail on that stuff, please leave it below in the comments. I'd be glad to go over a little more in my knowledge. I haven't been 3D printing very long. If you've seen any of my other interviews and stuff, I mean, it's about a year to 6 months. So I certainly don't know everything, still learning a ton. But I feel like I've got a good handle on, you know, what things cost and what kind of unknowns are there, at least, that I've come across in my journey so far. So if this has helped you, if you thought it was great, leave it in the comments. If you thought it was terrible and never want to see something like this again, that's fine. Leave that in the comments. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I appreciate everyone that's watching this, and have a great week.